To hit that hotkey list, and I do happen to have one here. Should put one in front of me before I start my demonstration. And the first thing I want to go through with this is kind of nice. I'm just going to kind of cue you. This key, when I hit F5, I'm going to turn my hotkeys on. This key is the option key when you see that on the bottom of the screen. So you see that, that means I'm hitting option. When you see this, that's our command key, the 4-leaf clover. The control key looks like a little up character. In Europe, this is the text message you cheer with. That's where it started. Although we cheer with it in America too, I guess. When you text somebody that, that's like a cheer. Did you know that? That's what I was told. I don't know. And then the shift key. That's the up arrow. I don't know. Sometimes I make it up, so you got to watch out for me. But anyway, that's it. Those are the keys. Again, there's my command key. There's the option key. Looks like the Egyptian-like kind of symbol. There's the control key, that funny-looking up caret. And there's this shift key. So that's what's going to happen. Along the way, I'll also do this little F1 thing, which is just basically spotlight something. And that's what I'm going to be doing to point out of an area of interest. And so occasionally you'll see that happen. Hopefully that gets recorded. A lot of times the delay to the remote desktop doesn't come up very well. So the big screen will help you with that. In our document, the first one is kind of an operating system hotkey. It's where do I find this on the system? And it's so I can actually see the file location of the file that's open right now. So I've got this document right here. And to do that, I can right click right on this icon on the title bar. So if you check the title bar that I'm floating with right here, right there is where I can go to find where this is located. So on my system, there's a hard drive called Mac HD. There's a user folder. There's my user account. On the desktop folder, that's where it is. It's right here. I have yellow shortcuts. Pretty sweet. I can also browse to that. I can go browse to my home folder just like that. So I can bring up those folders. And what's nice about this is it's not just where it is, but it's a nav tool. And so if you're working in a project folder and you want to go back to that project folder, open up another project, this would be a quick way to nav into the OS and find those other files. So that's the first hotkey, to show me that you can just right-click right up here on this thumbnail. However, you can also control-click and command-click, but right-click is probably the easiest thing. Now, if you right-click over here, it won't work. Now, this one's got a large name, so here it will work, but it happens over here. So I always tell people, right where it happens, that's where you should click. So think that little icon is a good target. The next one on the list is actually pretty utility-like too. It's working with the window menus. These are the window menus that I'm talking about, and they all come up. They're called windows because that's where you find them. Under the window pull-down, you can find all these helpful little menus like windows called layers. You got channels. I've got history up here right now. What I want you to show me with this one is a couple of things. First of all, you could just grab the gray bar and move it around. Pretty sad. But then you want to be able to push these around, these little tabs, so that they can be separated. Obviously, combining them is a big deal. Notice the little blue box, which is like our first indicator. When I move the two where they're going to combine, I get a blue box, and it magnetically snaps. That's the two indicators. One's a magnetic indicator. It's a feel. You kind of sense that your mouse will snap. And then you have the blue box saying, hey, I'm going to put those together. We also get that when we dock. So that was just combining tabs. Here's where we can dock the palettes. And you get a docking when you mouse it over the very bottom, and then you can dock them together there. The last thing I want you to be able to do is collapse these into buttons. Pretty easy. You just show me that you can manage those things. And it's really just very, very simple checklist stuff. It's not really even a hotkey thing. It's like, can you make your windows do what you want them to do? Absolutely. I see people working. They even have big monitors. Yet they have a small, and they have palettes all over. And I go, why? What's this up for? I don't know. It just came up. All right, well, push it away. Get away. Let's make some real estate. Put your graphic in there. Make it larger, please. Larger is going to mean more quality because we're seeing a bigger image. So I don't know why we don't manage those a little bit. And then I find out, I discover you don't know how to manage those, do you? So that's going to be one thing I'll check for. The next one is pretty simple. The change screen mode option. So we're kind of 4 down on the list. That's just F. So I keep hitting F. I toggle or cycle through 3 screen modes. This is the first one. I have my own names for them. It might bug you to use my names because the book will have some other names. I don't like the book name for these. I like this mode. I call it the edit mode or the screen mode. And we can look at the desktop in this mode. So what would you call it? Desktop mode? That's what my favorite word is for it. When you see the desktop, I can load other files. Like I could load my name file that I created this afternoon. So now I have two different tabs. It's probably what I would do with it. I would use files to impact my Photoshop work. I can take files and bring them in directly. I can launch them. I can go back and forth between the Finder just by clicking on the desktop. So that's my desktop mode. This is the edit mode. I named them all. This is the mode I like to do my editing in. Here's why. I can actually use the space bar, which is another one coming up on the list. It's the next one. If I hit the space bar, I can actually put some object like the corner of my graphic right in the middle. Of course, if I let go of the mouse, it just falls to the bottom like that. But look at that. I put the corner in the middle. I can zoom in with Command plus and hit the space bar again and put that right there. Now I can edit that corner. If I was in that first screen mode, I can't do that. I have to work down here on the corner. And I've watched people, I walk around, I see people working in the corner of their screen. I'm like, oh, this is annoying. And I go, yeah, it is. You don't know about that middle screen mode. And I show that to them, and their comfort goes way up. So I go hit F once. Now I can hit the space bar and put that right in the middle and maximize my editability right on the edge of a document in the bottom corner. The last F toggle or cycle for the screen is presentation mode. I'm going to hit Command 0 for a second here and fit this in the window. This last one is about presenting your work. And let's say I'm presenting the B graphic, but I'd like to show like a darker green instead of black backdrop. Canvas area. Right click over here and do a select custom color. And then I'm going to go over here and steal some dark green. And click OK. Now I've got a dark green. And so one quick thing about this that I like is just right clicking on that back canvas, finding a color, changing it from your graphics so that you can present this to somebody. Well, here's my graphic that we're going to put forward. And that beautiful olive green backdrop, whatever it is that you got. Black and gray show up pretty quickly. So black is typically what people want to contrast with, but gray also works good for adjustments in photos that have a lot of black in them. And so those are the three screen modes. Desktop mode, edit mode, presentation mode. And just hitting F toggles between them. We already covered the space bar, which is the toggle to bring up the hand key. Keep in mind that a toggle happens when we hit the key. It is not H, the hotkey for hand tool. If we hit H, we now bring up the tool. Now it's still on. What I like about toggles is I could be on B for brush, and I could just hit the space bar for a second, move my image, do whatever I have to do, and then go right back to painting. So once I hit the toggle, it happens. When I let up the toggle, it's off. Toggles are pretty good for anybody. So just the ability to bring up something while you're hitting the key, do something with it, and then let up that key. So I think they're very, very good to know. All right, now moving on. We have to take and switch between open documents. We have two documents open. I've got my name file in there. And Control is the first key. Tab is the second key. So Control Tab is what I use to toggle between open documents. So I'm just going to go full screen here once and just show the two documents that are open on my screen. Pretty simple. The next one that's on the list is hiding our menus. And right now, if I hit Tab, all my menus disappear. They're all gone. If I hit Tab, they all come back. If I want to hide the next one on the list, just the windows, and in this case, they're panels, but I'm going to explode them into windows. If I just want to hide these guys, I hit Shift, then Tab. So it's Shift Tab. And again, Tab sends them all away. Shift Tab. Look at that. I just brought back the windows. Now my tools are gone. That'd be a weird day. Normally what you do is you keep your tools up, you send those away, and then do your work and then bring them back when you want. So that's just another halfway. You can just shut down the information windows and leave your toolbar up in case you want to keep working with it. Let's bring them all back. We have an undo that happens. I'm just going to pick on a layer that can be edited. The B layer looks like it can be edited. And I've got a really big brush selected here. I don't need that. I'm just going to mouse my brush size down a little bit here. And then I'm just going to paint some wild red Z's. And I don't know how many history states that I've used, but quite a bit. Now, we all know that we can Command Z to undo once. We repeat it, it redos. undo, redo. But that's pretty boring. And way back, that's all we could do in Photoshop. If we add the Option key, Command Option Z, we can back up the history. Watch this palette over here. If we watch what's going on over here, Command Option Z will back us up through the entire crazy whatever I did. And I don't demo it on brushes by accident. I think when you're painting, especially if you have a drawing tablet and you're working on little details, it's easy in 30, 40 seconds to do 50, 60, 100 things with a brush. Don't try that with your mouse. You'll get clicky finger, which is not good. You get twitchy finger after a while. But you can't go that fast on a mouse. That's one good reason a drawing tablet may be in your future. You can get a lot more mileage out of that little pencil when you start working with it. And that's something to think about. When you're painting, you have a lot of little actions that you have to do to recreate something. I like to crank my history up to like 100 or 200. So I can back up all those silly brush strokes and try again. When I realize 100 strokes later that this is a horrible mistake, I have to try again. I do that a lot. I do a lot of boo-boo painting before I get what I want. More talented illustrators who have tricks up their sleeves from years of practice, they won't have that problem. They'll have tricks already up their sleeve and they go, oh, this sucks right away. I'm going to fix it right now. But I have to like learn by 100 mistakes. I don't know what it is. But ultimately, you can multiple undo, and that's what's cool there. Command Option Z. The free transforms are really fun too. I have this B layer right here, turning them on and off. It's this guy right up here in this graphic. And if I wanted to transform that, the first step is to select him. And then under Edit, Free Transform, this is where the command is. I can use hotkey Apple T to bring up Free Transform. This should be in your vocabulary already. I mean, this is a big deal. You go Command T, you get this bounding box. I can move the B around, right? I can rotate the B. I can scale the B. Right now I'm scaling the B, but I'm not constraining him. That magic modifier key, the Shift key, constrains. When I hit Shift, any of my adjustments are in proportion with other dimensions. So I'm going to constrain my adjustment when I do that. So Shift, that big modifier key comes out. If I hit Escape, I undo my transformation. If I hit Return, I apply it. So that's the big one with Free Transform, Command T. It's a jack of all trades, adjust something key. It's very, very useful. It's something you should have in your daily routine. So I can now move the B around. I can do a lot of stuff. Can I copy from this? What do you think? No, I can't. Why can't I? Because when I hit the Option key, I position this action point. I can also click on the action point and position it too. Like if I want the B to rotate around his nose, I'm going to put it right on the nose of the B, and then I'm going to go out to the back of the B and then just rotate the B a little bit, and then hit Return. And so I've just rotated the B a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 degrees. Now the next one is kind of cool. It's repeat that last transformation. So I just transformed something. Went Command T, did something, hit Return. After I do a complete transformation, I can repeat it with this hotkey, Command Shift T. I'm going to say do that again now. And Command Shift T does this. Now my B is doing his little break dance. Just like that. If I don't like that, I do a Command Option Z back many times. See, backs up. But it repeats whatever that last transformation was. And so now I'm going to jump back to Free Transform. So there I just did my little rotation. That's just repeat the last transformation. Now I want to do the spirograph trick. Now I know you can all do this, and I know you haven't probably done this, maybe a few of you. But my daughter is 7 and she knows how to do this. Because I made fun Photoshop spirographics with her. And I made sure she knew how to do this. She loves this little trick. She sits down at Photoshop, she can do this. And it's Command, Option, Shift, T. So now I'm asking the B to not only transform, but make a copy. And I get, and this is how spirograph graphics are made. Did you ever get that game, Spirograph? I wanted to buy that for her for Christmas. It's really sad. You can't buy that retail anymore. I had to go eBay and look for old, disgusting, beat-up spirographs in a box, and people are selling for like 30 bucks. And I bought one, stupid me, it was only $18. Half of the little spirograph plastic pieces were busted.
Those are things where you put the pen.
And it goes like this, and you make a pen.
I bought my
There's got to be a place I can buy them new.
I did. I gave it to her for Christmas, but I buy out of season, so that's your problem.
Probably my problem. I thought it would be a great gift for her. But I showed her how to do it in Photoshop. She's happy. But I can make spiral graphics like this. It's also good for doing technical things. People go, well, what do you mean technical things? Well, if I have to transform literally by the number, I can use the info palette and I can enter something specifically for a step and repeat. Like one of those evil printer dudes like Bill or John might say, step and repeat this, and this give you some sinister, almost seemingly mad mathematical number to step and repeat something. Well, what are you going to do? Arbitrarily drag to that with your mouse? You're going to use a menu to enter the information under the info palette and then transform it, and then you can do laser surgery with and make the computer do the precision work. Don't try to do it yourself. And you can repeat it again, repeat it again. You can also do it freeform. If we go out there and we go Command-T, well, I got the wrong layer on now, but if I go Command-T, I can go out here and I can just adjust like that. Now I go Command-Shift-Option-T, I get a third and a fourth. So I can step and repeat manually. So if I put a guide out there, I can snap it to a guide, then Command-Shift-Option-T, Command-Shift-Option-T, and repeat it. Take some time to get this one to work the first time. The secret is make your transformation, make sure it's applied, then with only the layer active, make this hotkey go. If you have it in transform mode already, it won't work. So people try to make this work and it's clumsy until you get used to it. All right. Good enough with all the transforms. There is one thing there on the bottom, using a contextual menu. Did you know when you're in Command-T mode again, that you can right-click to switch between the transforms? Now, why would sometimes some of these be shaded? Because they're not available. Like content-aware scale isn't possible right now. But what about sometimes when you have type on, you can't do certain things?
Or it's not rasterized.
That's it. Because type can transform so many ways before you have to make it an image. And then it'll let you do like perspective and other adjustments to it. So some elements that are still type won't let you transform all ways, like changing perspective or like warping. Now warping is one of the newer ones where you can actually go in and twist and shove the shape around a little bit there. It's kind of nice. So now I just warp that. Command-Option-Shift-T, I get to continue. Well, I didn't warp it enough to make a difference, but you can warp something, bloat it, and then continue to transform it and get copies of the layer, and that makes really cool animation parts. So I can make some fun animations with Command-Shift-Option-T. We'll get to that when we do our animation thing. There's some strategies with animation that we study. Getting around the interface, the next category. This is actually really, really an easy section. Command minus, Command plus zooms in and out, right? It is easy. But there are so many ways that we can do this. We can hold the Option key with one finger. I usually go left hand with that, and then the middle mouse button. I can either go left or right, but I go up and down. Pretty simple. And it's kind of wild, as you can see. Then there's the scrubby zoom, which is kind of fun. It's not on the list. Scrubby zoom is actually pretty simple. If I grab Z, the zoom tool, I got an option on the options bar up here. I'll go F1 on that. It's called scrubby zoom. That's a new CS5 thing. If I turn that on, what I can do with the zoom zoom key, let's say that really slowly, correctly, is I can click on the left click on the mouse and then left and right drag. I can go in and out with the mouse. And does everybody see this checkerboard? What are those?
Pixels.
Those are our pixels, yeah, on our pixel grid. Has anybody ever wanted to turn those off? I kind of wish secretly that they were by default off. If we want to turn those off, that's a view option. We go down to show and say, hey, get rid of pixel grid. Now I zoom in, pixel grid's not there. So you know what? I can kind of imagine the pixel grid without it. But it's really distractive when you get in there. It's like, what the heck? But there it is. There's some ways to zoom. So Command minus, Command plus, Command 0 fits in the window. Actually, Command 0 is 100%. But it fits our display at 100% size. We can also go Z zoom tool and left and right drag. And we also use that middle mouse button going like this. And so those are the things that I'm going to ask you to do there. Getting around. Making our selections. We have a number of ways that selections can come out. Well, I'm not talking about the selection tools making. I'm making them in a way off of layers that already exist. Also channels. If I go to channels, I've got a B channel, an alpha channel called B. If I command click on that, I get marching ants around that B. That's pretty amazing. But I haven't talked about the indicator. Let's just zoom in, go over the B, and then hold down the command key. When you see that little box around the finger, that's saying, hey, you're going to evoke magic ants. Is that what you want? You want to bring marching ants out of this channel? And I go, yeah, that's what I want. And I go over and I check it out. There they are. So command will evoke marching ants on that channel. So whatever's white will become selected marching ant style. Very cool. I'm going to go command 0, back out of my screen increase here, and show this trick also. I'm going to command D, deselect on the layers palette. I have that same B over here. Actually, it's a bigger B. And what I'm going to do is command, there's the indicator, click on the B. But remember, we're always on icons when we do this trick on the layers or channels. It'll work off to the side on channels, but it won't work here. Command clicking on a layer is way you can multi-select layers. And so it does something differently out here. So when you're on the layers palette, you want to click right on the layer icon, the thumbnail view that we're seeing right down here. If you miss, it won't work. And if we hold down the command key out here, look, no indicator. So again, we know we're hitting the right key, no indicator, it won't work. Go over the icon, yeah, there's our marching ant indicator. So again, look for the indicators to make sure you're about to do the right thing. Now let's say I've got this, a command A on. Everybody knows command A is select all, but it's on the list. It's sad. But we select the whole graphic, marching ants around the whole thing. I want to knock out the B. When we're using like a lasso tool, what's the key to subtract from an active selection? Let's just do it. Lasso, L is up. Hold down the option key. That's what you guys say is going to work. I lasso out that. I lasso out this. I ran into my keyboard. Look at that. There, I lassoed out that corner. Easy enough. So option says I'm about to get rid of from the active selection anything I want. Shift is just the opposite, right? It is. Shift will add. So I think you must know that as well. Now, on the trick that I just showed you where we command click a layer, we'll hit command and then we're going to hit option and look at my indicator. I'm just going to zoom in. Look at the indicator. It's got a little minus. So it's saying I'm going to subtract this B from the active selection. Let's see if it actually does that. So I'm going to go command option and then left click on the mouse, boom. I've knocked out the B out of the all selection. So that trick works off of channels. It also works off of, in this case, layers. Very good news. And so I want to see that happen too. So basically here I want you to show me that you can work with layers that have objects in them floating in transparency. You can add and subtract them using those two hotkeys. It's easy enough. It's not too bad. Let's deselect that. Let's say I just did a deselect. That's Command D. Command A is select all. What if I want to reselect? The command is right up here, but I want to do it by hotkey. There it is. Command Shift D. So it's like deselect. And that's why it's on the list near deselect. But I hit the command key. I hit Shift and I hit D. Now I bring back that last selection that was active. That's actually kind of handy. If you've done some selection work, but then you didn't save it to the channels palette, like because it was just a one-time thing, but you're like, oh, I really wish I could bring that back. There you can. You can just Command Shift D. Reselect the last active selection. All right. Very, very good. I think we've almost got everything here. The last one that we cover in this section are the marquee tools. So I'm just going to go M for marquee and take a look at the marquee tool. Here's the tool itself. Now, the one I really want is the elliptical. What's the hotkey modifier, our favorite hotkey modifier to find the next shift, our favorite hotkey modifier. So I'm going to hit Shift M and go toggling through those buried tools. And there's my elliptical. That's the only one that's there. So now I can use the elliptical tool to go out and select the center of the B. So right now I'm left clicking with the mouse. Pretty straightforward. But I want to apply those hotkeys. I have one hand doing the mouse work. The other hand's going to be free. I've got to use the fingers first. Shift is going to give me a perfect circle. Option is going to cause it to draw from where I first clicked, or from the center. So those two fingers are doing that. The third, the thumb, it's got to be able to reach over to the space bar. Now I can hit the space bar and move my selection on my mouse. I still have to have the button down, but this is the tricky thing that I want you to be able to show me. This is probably the trickiest thing. And when I'm done, I let up the mouse, I have a perfect selection. Crazy. It is crazy. And in that book, in that first class, that was there. I know it was. And you guys probably did it and then just moved right on and nobody seemed to care. And it happens once in a while that you got to do this. But if you have a small object, and that's why I have this flower out here, I can select the center of the flower by those 3 hotkeys really quick, pretty easily. It's not the end of the world trick if you don't get it, but I want you to show me that you can do that. Pretty simple stuff. But that's the 3 hotkey modifiers. Shift will constrain, Option draws from center, and then the spacebar, while you're drawing it, will allow you to move the selection with the mouse, not increase the size or decrease the size. Let up the shift, you can go back to doing that. All right, pretty straight up. Now again, Command D would deselect that. We're done with selections. The next category is under the brush area, and I have a layer that I can paint on, so I'm going to work on that. I'll go B, I hit D, B for brush to bring up the brush engine. I'm just going to pop off the options bar up here because we're going to look at that. On the options bar, we have the ability to change opacity and flow. We can also change the brush size. And so let's just start off with the brush size, because that's at the top of our list. To hit these brackets here and here, we'll change our Photoshop brush size. We just go up the different preset sizes that are in our preset list. Pretty good. So these 2 brush keys adjust the brush size. Now if I want to change the opacity of the brush that's painting, I change just with the number keys right at the top of the keyboard. So if I want to go to 20%, I hit 2. If I want to go 22, I hit 2 really quick and I get 22%. So those numbers change this option right there. If I hit enter 0, I get 100. Of course, I don't want to do it there. I want to do it out here. 0 brings us 100. If I enter it with this highlighted, of course, I get it in that window. Okay. Now I'm just going to do a Command Option back up here and take a look at flow. The modifier key does our flow. What's our favorite modifier key on the chalkboard? Shift. So if I do shift brackets or shift numbers, in this case numbers, I get a flow setting. So shift 2 will bring me 20% flow. Shift 70 gives me 70% flow. Now here's the difference between flow and opacity. Opacity is a fade of whatever you're painting into the background. Flow is similar to that, but it's delivered a different way. So if I have on this layer some color, let's just go out there and pick up purple. Well, let's just go out with 100% opacity and 100% flow. And then click and drag. Let's go and change our flow. We're going to go Shift 5 to 50% and click and drag the same thing. There's the same ink color, but notice the intensity that's coming out of the nozzle is half. And so they steal the word flow from the airbrush world. So imagine the air going through the airbrush has now suddenly been cut in half. And so the volume of paint that you're painting with is now cut in half. No opacity has changed, but it's an opacity-like effect. That kind of makes sense? That's flow. Now if I go to Shift 0, which can put my flow back to 100, and then 5, 50%, I can now paint with 50% opacity. And so this has the flow of this, but it's half faded. When you're painting, and you're painting background or subtle effects and your fades, this is really huge. Setting your flow and opacity. Those are the primary ways that we can fade into with our paintbrushes. And so being able to do that with hotkey makes it much quicker. However, if you don't do it by hotkey, it's just a mouse up here and you got to drive it. So the hotkeys. Command Option Z will back up over my flow paint options there. There's some other things that we can do. Painting in a straight line is the Shift key. So I can hold down the Shift key, then paint, and it'll force a straight line while I'm painting. Or I could shift click it. Click, and then hold down the Shift key and click, and it'll go straight to that next point in a straight line. This is especially nice when you're masking and you're covering up a long straight edge. You just want a nice gentle blend all the way through. You just shift click and boom, you can cover up an edge just nicely. So shift clicking, what else do we have under painting? We have D for default colors. When I do that, these two colors down here set themselves to the default colors. My favorite question is, default for what? What do we use black and white for by default?
Black is to show, white is to cover.
Almost, you got it backwards.
Backwards.
And that is a process of masking, correct. Black conceals, white reveals. So black would be covering up and white would be revealing. And it's their default for masking. Now people go, well, they're just the default colors, Rob. Default for what? For masking. And a cool thing about when you're masking is you either are doing that. You're either painting to reveal or you're painting to conceal. So you're using black to cover up or you're painting with white. And a common thing to do is hit D to get started, default colors, and then hit X. What does X do? It's on the list too. It switches from your foreground to your background. So now you're painting with the opposite color. And so when you're out there and you hit X, you're just switching from one to the next. So you can now conceal. If you were revealing before, you can just switch to whatever the opposite was. Masking is improved in Photoshop CS5 with that Refine Edge window. That engine comes up called Refine Edge, and it helps you make better masking in your work. And I'm sure when we do our movie poster, we'll have some extractions or something that we'll have to do, and someone will be able to demonstrate that. I'll demonstrate it for the whole course, but for everybody to see. But it is very, very fast compared to what it used to be. Making them by hand is what a lot of us used to do. And it's still important to know the skills to do them manually, but when the computer gets you there so much quicker, your manual work is more like cleanup after the computer compared to complete construction of it. So it's a good time saver to get Refine Edge under your control. The last one on the list is to surf the brush presets. And what are those? These are these. If I want to surf between these brush tips, like say I put a bunch of brushes out there. I created a bunch of brushes for my painting project, and I'm going to use those in my project. And I just want to surf them while I'm painting. Bring up this window. The period and the comma will do that. So I'm just going to click off, and look, I can now switch. I'm going to eventually get to, I'm just surfing the different brushes that are in my, so I can use, I'm using period right now, but I can back up with comma, and I can just surf through those windows that are up there. I can't have that open and show it to you while it's working because it doesn't work while that window's up. But the comma and the period will help you toggle between brushes that you set up there. Very, very nice. Again, it's clumsy to go up there to activate a window, then go down and pick it, and then you have to go back out on the screen and use it. Now you're on the screen using it, and you just go, I want a different brush. And you got them all grouped together. You just back up, go to a smaller or larger brush, and keep your thing working with the brush. Get more mileage done. Anyway, I added that one. That's a kind of a new one. On the layers palette, we can surf blend modes. And I've got this layer kind of built for doing that. The blend modes that we want to surf are right up here, and I'm going to just push that up to normal. I want to surf these. The reason why I think surfing blend modes is a great idea is because if you go read the definition, it doesn't help you one bit. You get like this, what the heck? Exclude, it plays with the lightness values of the top layer and the difference in the lightness values of the layer below it. And it excludes those values from the top layer. And what? And then you're like, but I don't know. How am I going to know if that's going to work on these two layers? You really don't. Basically, there are 4 categories. There's an other category. That's where exclude is and difference. And then there's the darken and lighten. And then there's overlay. So there's 4 kinds of blend modes. Those are good to know. And there's a lot of technique that show you specific ways that we put them to work. Those are extremely good. But when it comes down to memorizing the definitions, not good. So here's what I suggest. Find some layers that you've got and you're trying to do something creative with. Like I've got this flower. I've actually got a number of backgrounds down here. But if I got this flower and I want to see how it surfs through the blend modes, there's a hotkey for that. And I'm just going to go to the Move tool because if I have a brush on, the hotkey is going to make the brush surf the blend modes. So I'm going to go to the Move tool. It's important to make sure you're on the Move tool to surf the layers and their blend modes. Then I'm just going to hit the Shift key and go plus or minus. And it's the minus or equal key as it's showing up, but it's plus or minus up there. And I can surf those different blend modes. And you can see how those blend modes impact that layer. Of course, they're overlapping a layer that looks like that. If I turn this layer on and keep surfing them, Well, I got to turn it back on to surf them. Now I'm impacting a different layer, just a different graphic design. It's a wrinkly plastic wrap effect. And so you can kind of see how that would work. And seeing how the blend modes are going to impact your graphic is a good way to learn how they actually do that by sight. And honestly, you end up doing that even if you know the definition. You're like, let's see what it's going to do. Oh, I don't want to do that. Maybe it was a good idea, maybe not. And then kind of picking up some general rules of the road as we go. I do have a document on blending modes and how we use them in our techniques, and that'll help you explore that when we get to painting. But surfing them is invaluable. Pretty nice. There's a hotkey for merging down. If I want to merge this down with the layer below it, here we go. First I want to click on the two layers, and I'm going to merge down. Here's my trick question. Which layer will have the name when I'm done? The top one or the bottom one? It used to be like that.
No, the top one goes.
Look at this. It's the top one. But you're right. It used to be the other way around. And boy, how about that for a U-tinge? One day they must have just decided in the Adobe factory or headquarters, you know, I think we better reverse this. I think we've been wrong all along. Now I want to call it merge up. Because I think when you merge down, you should end up with a layer at the bottom, which would then make you think that's the one with the name. That's how it used to work. It's still called merge down, but not when we're talking about the name. The name is merging up. Anyway, but little technicality there. I'm going to Command Option Z back out of that. Keep on moving through the list here. We have to nudge. Nudging is easy. If I go to that B again, and I just use the arrows, I got to have the move tool on. I can nudge that B around. Now, what's our favorite modifier key? Okay, what happens when I hit Shift here? It moves 10 pixels. So it's super nudge. So if I'm in a hurry and I don't want to micro nudge yet, I just Shift nudge and then I get close. And honestly, these are really cool hotkeys. Any way you look at them, just to move things around. What would happen if I hit Option? What does the Option key do? When I Option drag something, what do I get?
Duplicate.
I get a copy. If I Option nudge, oops, I get a copy. Be careful with that. People Option nudge. Because in other software, Option nudge is a micro adjust. And they think they're in Quark or something, and they go Option nudge, and you get a bunch of copies of a B. Micro copies, just little pixels off.
If you did a Shift Option nudge, would it make you a copy 10 pixels over?
What do you think? Shift Option nudge? It just did.
Well, yeah, it does.
How about that? Photoshop is a beast. All right, let's just keep moving on to the list here. We have the nudge, we have copy a layer and element. Well, we've talked about that here. You can do it a lot of ways. On the layers palette, Command J gets it done fast and first, best of all. You just Command J a layer, boom, a new layer is born. You can Command J text. Then you get another text layer just like it. So you don't have to go reset the font and pick the same size. You just copy one that already exists, then go down and highlight it and change your type. And so it speeds you up by just being able to do those quick things. By Command J is the one that does that. Option drag will do it as well. So I'm going to undo and then hold down the Option key and move the mouse. You get a double pointer as an indicator. So let's zoom in and show you that double pointer indicator. Hold down the Option key, drag up, I get a double mouse pointer. You don't have to just do it there though. I'm going to do undo, undo. You can do it Command 0, back up, out on the screen. So if I go out there, click on the object I want to move, Option, and then drag here, I get a B this way too. So that works as well. So the other way, and it's kind of the old school way, is to drag down to the new layer button and you get a copy that way. This is kind of weird. And I've actually trashed layers by accident by doing this, which is just no big deal. You just undo. But, you know, it's like, boy, all that work. You might as well just Command J. So I don't even know why I show you that. But you can do it that way. Do you think I would count that as a hotkey, though? It's just another way to do it. I don't really get too worried about that. Well, let's keep moving. We've gone through, we got to move layers up and down. Before that, there's a grouping. We've already got some groups on here, but if I select these 3 layers, I could just make a folder or a group on the layers panel and put them in there. And they go right in there, right? So that's one way of doing it. But what would be the advantage of taking and doing this, Command G, putting them into a group? Well, what's cool about that is I could say, you know what? I want just command click this layer and that layer. Command G in a group. And this layer gets abandoned. So I could just a la carte pick the layers that I want. Command G, force them all up into a group. And so maybe that's an advantage. The other neat thing is exactly how they're organized, they go into that group. If you drag them in there, you're putting them in an order, and you can actually get them messed up. You got to open the group and then rearrange them. And that's happened to me. So I like it's all perfect. I just need these layers. I click on them, Command G, they're all in a nice little group. Happy as a good family, all in one folder. All right, so moving along. The last one is moving a layer up or down. Let's take this bottom layer and then just do a command bracket to move them down or up. I'm going to use the command up bracket. He goes all the way to the top. Command down, all the way to the bottom. And he even goes into these folders. You check that out. It's kind of cool. So the bracket is just taking the selected layer, command bracket, and just moving them up or down. That's kind of fun. If you just have a layer, you just want to move it up in the cycle or sequence. And what did we miss here? We got them all. Under the bottom, we have the select a type layer with the mouse. Well, that's easy enough, but it's not really quick enough if you go out there and do this. I mean, that's cool. You drag and you go over your text. But you know what happens? If you miss a little bit, you get a new type layer. You got all shaking your heads like, yeah, that's me. I do that all the time. I miss. It's happened. You get small copy, big copy next to each other. You try to get the small stuff, and you miss. And then you got a new layer. You got to trash it and try again. It's really frustrating. And so what I'm thinking is, first of all, we could look at, I'm going to zoom in. What's our target? I get T, the type tool. The little hash mark that we see in our character right across the midway point of our I-beam. That's our target. We want to line that up with where our baseline would be. Then we just click and it's easy to highlight. That's it. But here's the weird thing. I've got a shadow effect on this, and if I think the baseline is in the shadow, I'm too low. And sometimes that causes me to miss. I also get these scripty fonts and decorative fonts where the baseline's up here and the decoration doesn't end down here. And people think, well, that must be where the baseline is. And they're wrong, and they miss. And so it's just not reliable, and you're never going to be 100%. So don't feel bad if you create a layer of text that you got to delete right away. Or, I'm going to escape to quit my edit, or you could go over here and double-click to highlight it like that. If you just double-click the text icon, it'll select the layer. Now, let's say I want to add a change to flower power and start with the F. Then I use the left arrow. And I have my I-beam there, and then I can just mouse over. Let's say the W should be a U. Flower power. I don't know why I would do that. Let's say I made another typo, and I'm like, oh, let's fix it. It's a shortcut. So I highlight it, and it's going to be at the end. So I go to right arrow, and then I mouse over shortcuts. You know, like we're from Canada. The flower power and the shortcuts. You know, so now that's how I would quickly surf. And now, what are the chances I'm going to make an extra layer? Not at all. No chances at all. So double-clicking on the icon can quickly select it. Then using your arrows can get your I-beam at the end or the start, and then you can mouse over and then make your quick change. Escape always gets me off. Escaping your text is better than trying to click off. Have you ever had I've got text selected and I can't do anything else and I got to try to find a way to deselect my text problem? Escape is your number one answer. I want to escape that text. Put that in your mind. I'm escaping you. I don't want to be selected to you anymore. Escape. Done. Simple enough. All right. Double clicking. Now, one other double clicking trick comes up here. Launching layer styles. We were on top of the text icon. That's that thing I'm talking about. Well, right, I can't get that to stay. It's how mousing, though. It's right there. That's what I'm clicking on. If I go over here and I double click, guess what? I get layer styles. So if you miss, you're doing the layer style. That's the next one on the list. Double clicking a layer will quickly bring up layer style options for it. So if you're like, ooh, I could use a layer style. Boom, you double click that, boom, click, 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 boom, off you go. and you're ready to roll. Not that speed is that big a deal, but it makes you feel better when you go fast. And then we have scrolling or scrubbing an adjustment window. What the heck is that with a keyboard? So let's do the text thing again. I highlight the text, flower power. It's not spelled right anymore. But I go up to the options bar, and I wanna adjust these windows. Here's a type window. Here's a font size window, which isn't coming up. Now, why aren't we getting a font size? Trick question.
2 different size fonts.
Right on the money. You have 2 different font sizes. So I could left arrow or right arrow, and let's just, I got hobo selected there. That's good. But I could go here, and now let's say I want to select character by character. I'm going to hold down the shift key and then left arrow and go over all of this. This is all one font size. Now let's say I want to adjust just that. I highlight that font size, and I can use consistently the up-down arrow. Remember our favorite modifier key is, what do you think that's going to do?
Right, 10.
Bingo. What it does all the time, plus 10. So that shift key modifier makes it go faster if we're not happy with the 1 at a time adjustment. But we can adjust it. Now, look what we can do with the middle mouse button. This is crazy. I can try to use the middle mouse button, which is like, it's radical. It's like zippy, zippy. And if you've been cooking ham with honey, it's not going to help your mouse button. It's going to be all sticky. That's the other thing. Don't ever try to saute ham with honey. It just makes a mess out of everything. I mean, I was like frustrated. I just left it. I came back. I had to clean it. I picked up the spatula. And it was stuck. I was like, it was like, this was a really bad idea. And I was like, snap. And I went in and I had to scrub it, heat it, and ick. I thought it would be a really good idea because, they put ham and honey together. They do that on purpose. Don't. Just don't do it. Anyway, character set is also a very cool thing to think about here. Character setting. I like to call this, what everybody else calls it, kerning. But when you hear somebody say kern your font, what are they telling you to do in the just normal sense? What do you think kerning a font really is? It's kind of a trick question.
Kerning, is that the up and down motion of where your baseline is?
Sometimes people think it's like leading. Sometimes people say kerning is like the space between characters, like tracking. But why do we have those specific words then? If kerning is some generic thing that always means the same thing. Kerning is truly a generic thing. So if somebody says kern your text, they are now become ambiguous. They're like, well, thank you. I like kerning text. What would you like me to adjust, the tracking or the leading? And they go, no, but I want you to kern it. And I go, yes, we've discovered kerning is the improvement that we want. But what would you like? Should I go with leading or would you like some vertical size? You need to be specific, right? And well, kerning, what is a kernel? It's about adjusting the kernel. What is that? Let me highlight one. There's a kernel.
Character?
Well, it's a character, but it's a space around that character, really. We have space hanging out in a kernel. And when we adjust that space, any way we are just talking about, we are kerning. But you're going to run into a lot of people that'll see your leading is bad. It should be more like a double space document. Adjust your kerning. Well, yeah. Thanks for adding the double space thing. It makes me think I should add more. And what are they adding? They're adding more leading, space between the characters. You don't want to know why it's called leading. Do you know why it's called leading? Any historians there? Some head shaking. Yep.
The pieces of lead they put in between.
Because in Ben Franklin era typesetting, they added lead slugs between their lines to push the lead down. So it's adding more lead, leading. And you're going to run into people that are kerning experts that don't call it leading. What do they call it? Leading. And you could just like kind of turn and vomit when they say that because they don't know the true word. But don't do that. But the most under-described thing in the typography world is simply kern your text. That'll improve your document. Well, please tell me more. Would you like it tracked in tighter? Would you like me to change its vertical size? Would you like me to descend from the baseline, shift the baseline for you? What would you like me to do? Be specific about your kernel adjustments. And now what I like about what I just taught you is this character palette plays with that. Let's go out there and highlight the both characters and say, you know what, let's adjust the tracking. Now I just do up, down arrow, and I can adjust that right there. Pretty cool. I can be very, very specific. You can try the crazy mouse. It's not so fun, but it's fluid. What I like about it is you're not entering a number, seeing its result. Entering a number, seeing its result. It's fluid. You're like, look at that, it's happening. You're surfing it. It's like you're making the adjustment happen very fluidly. Once you start doing this scrubbing of these windows, even with the up-down arrows, you don't do it any other way because you see the adjustment and you can pick and choose. And you're not looking at the number, you're looking at the actual space in the lines. And I think your typography gets impacted really close. And boy, typography, boy, I call it the rules of margins. The use of margins is typography. That'd be like an abbreviation of the whole skill, wouldn't it? But it is. It's about talking about margins and stuff like that. And a lot of other cool stuff. But there it is, poorly spelled flower power. There's our last hotkey, adjusting with a scrubby window. Probably the coolest adjustment with a scrubby window is the surfing of the fonts. I can just up, down arrow fonts and surf the font menu. When you go over here and try to find a font this way, reading the preview word sample, does that get the job done? At all? No, it doesn't. And so you're probably going to want to surf it. I think this is a cool way to preview what the font face is. Maybe you want a nice big bold face like that impact face. Flower power. And so surfing the blend modes that way. And that works in any window. You can surf anything. You've got a layer out there. I've got this flower. I want to surf its opacity. I just up, down arrows. Of course, we're in dissolve mode. I want to fade it back. Of course, it's got a gradient background behind it, so it's going to look kind of strange as it fades. But you can do it with any window. And you can always do up, down arrows. And guess what Shift would do? Wow, if you're following along, you guys already have the answers to most of the tricky things. Now, I'll come around when we do this. Today, I just want, we can take another break while we start. And of course, Amy wanted to split out of here because you probably got a babysitter or something. We can cover Amy and whoever's sitting next to her. I'll do those quick, and then I'll do another group of 3 or 4, and we go around the room. I just want to know that you have them under your control. I'll even help you get them done. It's not even a drill today. It's just make it work. And you can bring up this flower power. As a matter of fact, if I quit this, the last thing I'm going to do is shove this out to your computers. Am I still connected to your computers, or have you guys been like disconnected? Wow. That's another weird thing. During the day, I get disconnected constantly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. Hang on a second here. I got to select all of your computers and copy this flower power to all of your computers. So this is going to your desktop. At least I think it did. I don't know. Maybe it did. It didn't give me a confirmation, so I'm not sure if selecting it that way works. Try it this way. Now it looks better. On 12 of 13. So I guess one of you didn't get it, so now all of you are getting it. Very good. Your computers are yours. I'm going to quit my recording, and then we'll do that first practice lap.